Welcome to the Happy Hormones Coach podcast, your go-to source for all things women's health. I'm here to guide you through the ups and downs of hormonal changes, helping you understand how these shifts impact every aspect of your life. So whether you're in the perimenopause phase or really any other phase of life, looking to improve your overall well-being, or just seeking practical tips on stress management, nutrition, and fitness, then this podcast is for you. Join me as we explore holistic and functional approaches to health, share expert insights from guests, and empower you to feel your best at every stage of life. Before we dive into today's episode, I want to remind you that the information shared in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any medical condition. Always consult with your healthcare provider before making any changes to your health regimen. Hotties, welcome back to the Happy Hormones Coach podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer. Today's topic is one that affects every single one of us at some point or another. It is triggers. You know, those moments when something just hits us and we feel a wave of emotion that's sometimes hard to control, especially when you're behind a keyboard on social media and during the political campaigns. I'm so glad that is over. Maybe, like I said, it's a comment from a friend. It could be social. It could be a memory, anything at all. But here's the thing, triggers don't have to be seen as problems. Instead, they're opportunities. Each trigger is a signal from within, so asking us to take a closer look at something that needs to be healed or needs attention. So in this episode, we'll explore why we get triggered, how it affects us, not only our emotional health, but also our mental and physical well-being, and most importantly, how can we start transforming triggers into powerful tools for self-growth? So let's begin by defining what a trigger actually is. Well, they are emotional responses to specific situations, words, or even memories. They're those reactions that feel like they come out of absolutely nowhere, kind of like panic attacks. It often leaves us feeling vulnerable, defensive, or overwhelmed. So the key thing here is to understand that triggers are often rooted in past experiences or unresolved emotions. When we're triggered, it's usually because something from our past, an emotion, a wound, a fear, etc., is being stirred up again. So imagine you had a challenging experience in your childhood, where you didn't feel heard. Now, as an adult, if someone interrupts you or dismisses what you're saying, it can trigger those same feelings, even if the current situation is not the same one as the past. And this is why triggers aren't always the external event itself, but are often more about the internal reaction. And so when we recognize this, we can start using triggers as a mirror to understand ourselves more deeply. Now, let's dive into how triggers impact our emotional health. When we experience one, it often brings up emotions like anger, sadness, frustration, or fear. And these emotions can feel intense because they're connected to old wounds or unresolved parts of ourselves. And triggers, in a way, are pointing us toward areas where we ourselves need to heal, not the other person or the thing that triggered us in the first place. They're asking us to check in and say, why does this bother me so much? Is there something I haven't resolved? This is emotional health at its core. Learning to use these reactions as signposts rather than just reacting and pushing them away. So take a moment to think about the last time you were triggered. Ask yourself, what emotion came up? Where do I think it stems from? These reflections can be transformative for emotional healing. You can even journal and write about it. Triggers don't just affect our emotions either. They impact our mental health too. So when we're repeatedly triggered and don't address the underlying causes, it can lead to anxiety, stress, and even depression over time. And we may start feeling on edge more often, as though we're just waiting for the next thing to upset us. And when we're triggered frequently without understanding why, it creates a mental loop of worry and self-blame. This is why understanding them can free up mental space, allowing us to feel more grounded and calm.
And one thing to remember is that by recognizing and addressing triggers, we're actually helping to rewire our brain. And each time we choose to pause, reflect, and process instead of react, we're creating new, healthier neural pathways. How awesome is that? So triggers also have a physical effect too. When we are bothered, our body goes into a stress response and our heart rate might increase, our muscles tense up, and we may even have that feeling in our stomach or even get a headache. So over time, if we're constantly triggered and don't address it, the stress just takes a toll on our physical body. And chronic stress, as you know, from unresolved triggers even, can lead to issues like high blood pressure, fatigue, inflammation. And so learning to manage them isn't just about emotional or mental health. It's crucial for your overall well-being and your physical health too. So in short, you've heard me quote this book, and I just love it. Our body keeps the score, and it's true. By healing our emotional and mental reactions, we're also helping our physical body stay healthier. So why should we take the time to look at what triggers us? What are our triggers? Dive a little bit deeper into them. Well, because they're opportunities for growth. They give us a chance to understand and heal parts of ourselves that may have been ignored. Now, you may need, if there's a lot of emotions that come up when you write about this, think on this, journal about this, I definitely advise you to see a professional therapist or counselor, psychologist, anything like that, because this is something that once you do dive deeper, it can stir up a lot of real emotions, a lot of real things. And I highly encourage you to work alongside of a professional that works directly with men and women through these things. So I definitely would advise that. But rather than seeing a trigger as something bad, try viewing it as a gift, a way of finding and healing part of you that may still need care. And this is where the real work begins. When we start seeing triggers as our teachers, we are no longer controlled by them. How awesome is that? We're empowered to make new choices and create new patterns. So here are a few practical tips for dealing with triggers. Pause. Always pause before reacting. The moment you feel something coming on or you feel bothered or triggered in some way, take a deep breath and pause. This gives you a moment to process before responding. Number 2, ask yourself, why? Instead of focusing on the external situation, ask yourself, why does this bother me so much? You might actually uncover a deeper layer like feeling underappreciated or unheard, anything like that. Number 3, journal. Journaling is a powerful tool. So after a triggering experience, write down what happened and explore what emotions came up. Over time, this can reveal patterns and help you understand yourself better. And that's something we should all want to do. And number 4 is practice mindfulness. So mindfulness helps us stay present and in the moment, and it reduces the intensity of our reactions. And just a few minutes a day can help lower reactivity and bring more awareness to our responses. And I want to walk you through a simple exercise that you can use when you're feeling triggered. Find a quiet place, take a few deep belly breaths, and let's begin. And don't do this when you're driving, only when you're in a safe place that you can do this. So number 1, identify the trigger. Think of a recent experience where you felt triggered. It could be something big or small. Number 2, observe the emotion. What emotion did you feel in that moment? Was it anger, sadness, frustration, or something else? And ask, what does this remind me of? Dig a little deeper here. Does this feeling remind you of another time in your life? Maybe from childhood or a past experience? Write down your insights. So once you thought about it, write down what came up. How does this experience connect to past memories or unresolved feelings? And lastly, close with kindness. Take a moment to thank yourself for doing this exercise. Reflecting on triggers can be intense, and even our past can be intense, but it's a powerful step towards healing. And over time, this exercise can help you gain clarity on your triggers and start transforming them into tools for personal growth. Well, I know this was a little heavy, but on the brief side, I hope it helped you. And I hope this conversation on this topic, which is so sensitive, has given you a new perspective. So, triggers are invitations to look within and heal. The next time you feel that familiar spark of emotion coming on, take it as an opportunity for growth. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to leave a review. It helps more people discover this podcast and join us on this journey of self-discovery and healing and all things women's health. And don't forget to share this episode with someone who might find it helpful. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. And until next time, embrace your triggers as a tool for healing and growth because you got this. See you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to the Happy Hormones Coach podcast. I hope you found today's episode insightful and empowering. Remember, taking charge of your health is a journey, and I'm here to support you every step of the way. If you enjoyed this episode or any of the other episodes, please be sure to share, subscribe, rate, and leave a review. It does help me to reach more women like you who are striving for optimal health and happiness. And don't forget to follow me on social media for daily tips and inspiration. Until next time, stay healthy, stay happy, and keep thriving.